Whitney, Elvis, the Beatles. They made these songs iconic, but none of them sang it first. These 20 hits were actually covers, and the originals? They'll completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about music legends. All Along the Watchtower, Jimi Hendrix, 1968. It's gritty, psychedelic, and packed with firepower. But the version you know, the one that melts speakers, wasn't written by Jimi Hendrix. It came from Bob Dylan just a year earlier. In 1967, Bob Dylan recorded All Along the Watchtower for his John Wesley Harding album. His version was sparse, just acoustic guitar, harmonica, and a quiet storm of cryptic lyrics. It felt like a folk poem whispered in a storm. Then Hendrix got his hands on it. In 1968, Jimi Hendrix re-recorded the song with the full force of his guitar genius. He rearranged it, added layers of distortion, epic solos, and turned it into a sonic battlefield. The result? A version so definitive, even Dylan admitted, it overwhelmed me really. And here's the part that blows minds. After hearing Hendrix's take, Dylan started performing Jimi's arrangement live, from the structure to the delivery. That's right, the original artist dropped his own version in favor of the cover. Watchtower became one of Hendrix's most famous songs, charting internationally and appearing in countless films, war documentaries, and even The Simpsons. So next time you hear that opening riff, remember, Hendrix didn't just cover Dylan, he elevated him. And with that, we kick off a countdown that proves even legends sometimes borrow. Stick with me, because what Led Zeppelin did next might blow your mind. And that's exactly what we're diving into next. 19. Dazed and Confused, Led Zeppelin, 1969. It's dark, it's dangerous, and it sounds like pure Led Zeppelin magic. But the real story behind Dazed and Confused might leave you, well, dazed and confused. Most fans believe this hypnotic track was birthed in the depths of Zeppelin's brilliance, but it was actually written and recorded 2 years earlier in 1967 by folk musician Jake Holmes. His version was slower, moodier, and stripped of the thunderous guitar riffs we associate with the song today. Here's where things get messy. Jimmy Page, before Zeppelin, opened for Holmes while playing with the Yardbirds. He later brought the song into Zeppelin's repertoire without crediting Holmes. For years, Holmes remained silent, but in 2010 he filed a copyright lawsuit, finally putting the controversy into the spotlight. Zeppelin's version took on a life of its own, with screaming violin bow solos and Robert Plant's signature wails. It became one of the band's most iconic tracks, but it carried the weight of uncredited inspiration. And the legal drama doesn't end there. Zeppelin has faced multiple lawsuits over song credits throughout their career, including the infamous Stairway to Heaven battle. So the next time you blast Dazed and Confused, remember, the origins of that masterpiece are a lot more tangled than you think. And if you stick with me, I'll show you how one of the most beloved girl power anthems came from a man's voice. 18. Valerie, Mark Ronson featuring Amy Winehouse, 2007. You've danced to it, vibed to it, maybe even cried to it. But Valerie didn't start with Amy Winehouse. The original came from a band you probably don't even know, and their version? Completely different energy. Before Amy poured her smoky brilliance into Valerie, it belonged to a British indie rock band called the Zootons. Released in 2006, their version had more guitar, less groove, and definitely less soul. It was catchy, but it wasn't iconic until Mark Ronson got involved. Ronson stripped the song down, turned it into a retro soul jam, and handed it to Amy Winehouse. What she delivered was magic. Her version felt lived in, raw, effortlessly cool. The kind of performance that makes you feel like she's singing from experience, even though she didn't write a single word. And here's the wild part. Amy recorded it as a last-minute addition to Ronson's album Version. It wasn't even meant to be a single, but her voice transformed it into a cultural moment. It charted all over the world and became one of her most beloved tracks. Even the original band admitted they loved what she did with it. The lead singer of the Zootons once joked, "She took our song to places we didn't even know it could go." And coming up next, a European love ballad becomes a high-energy club hit, but only after getting a full makeover.
Gloria, you're always on the run now, running after somebody. You gotta get him somehow. I think you got
17. Gloria, Laura Branigan, 1982. It's fast, it's loud, it's full of energy and drama. But the Gloria you know? That's not the one Italy grew up with. Because before Laura Branigan turned it into a dance floor essential, Gloria was a love song with a whole different language. In 1979, Italian singer Umberto Tozzi released Gloria as a powerful ballad filled with longing and passion. It was massive across Europe but didn't make waves in English-speaking countries. That changed when Branigan heard the track and decided to reimagine it. She kept the melody but completely rewrote the lyrics. Her version wasn't about love, it was about a woman spiraling out of control. Gloria became the name of obsession, of chaos, of someone chasing fame and losing themselves along the way. It was dark, dramatic, and unforgettable. And that gamble paid off. The song spent 36 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100, longer than any other hit that year, and was nominated for a Grammy. Branigan's powerful vocals gave it an edge that turned heads everywhere. Tozzi, by the way, he loved it. In interviews, he said he was blown away by how she transformed it. But what if I told you the most heartbreaking love song of all time wasn't even written by the woman who made it famous? That's exactly what's coming next, and you won't believe who cut it first. 16. I Will Always Love You, Whitney Houston, 1992. It's the song that stops the world when that final note hits. But before Whitney Houston made it immortal, Dolly Parton sang it first, under very different circumstances. In 1974, Dolly Parton wrote I Will Always Love You as a goodbye, not to a lover, but to her longtime business partner and mentor, Porter Wagoner. The split was professional, not romantic, and the song came from a place of respect and closure. When Dolly first performed it for Porter, he reportedly cried. Flash forward nearly 2 decades later, and Whitney Houston, prepping for the Bodyguard soundtrack, was offered another song, What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted. But when her producer discovered it had already been used in another film, he suggested Dolly's song instead. Whitney wasn't convinced at first, but after hearing the song rearranged with that now iconic a cappella opening, she agreed. What followed was history. Her version sold over 20 million copies. It became the best-selling single by a female artist of all time. And that final note? A pop culture monument. People still try to hit it and usually fail. Dolly later joked, I made more money off Whitney's version than I did off my own, but she also called it one of the greatest renditions she's ever heard. Coming up next, the quietest man in music history wrote a song with 80 verses, and no one noticed until it was reimagined with heartbreak. Hallelujah. 15. Hallelujah, Jeff Buckley, 1994. It's the anthem of sad movies, late-night playlists, and weddings that make you tear up. But the version you know? That came after decades of being ignored. Leonard Cohen wrote Hallelujah in 1984. He spent years crafting its lyrics, originally writing over 80 verses. The result was a poetic, biblical meditation on love, loss, and surrender. But when he released it, barely anyone noticed. The album flopped, radio stations passed, even critics didn't get it. Then came John Cale, who covered it in 1991 with a new arrangement and a tighter selection of verses. That version caught the ear of Jeff Buckley. Buckley took Cale's arrangement and infused it with raw vulnerability. No background choir, no studio polish, just his voice, a guitar, and aching silence. His version was haunting, and it didn't catch fire immediately either. It grew slowly, becoming a posthumous legend after Buckley's tragic death in 1997. Now it's one of the most covered songs in history with over 300 recorded versions. But still, none hit quite like Buckley's. As Bob Dylan once said about Cohen's lyrics, it's a beautiful song, but I couldn't play it straight. I'd be crying too much. And coming up, that feel-good reggae tune you've been singing along to for years? It was originally a sad little love song by Neil Diamond. Stay close. This one's a twist.
Don't let me be in love.
14. Red Red Wine, UB40, 1983. It sounds like sunshine in a bottle. You sip your drink, the bass line hits, and suddenly, life feels a little easier. But here's the twist. This feel-good reggae anthem started as a heartbreak song by Neil Diamond. Back in 1967, Neil Diamond wrote and recorded Red Red Wine as a slow, melancholic ballad. The lyrics were the same, but the vibe? Completely different. His version dripped with sadness, a man drowning his sorrows in wine, barely holding it together. Fast forward to 1983 and along comes British band UB40. They found the song on a compilation album and mistook it for a reggae track. That mistake changed everything. They reworked it with a laid-back groove, gave it a ska rhythm, and dropped in a toast section, spoken word rap, for extra flavor. And it worked. Their version climbed the UK charts and then flopped in the US until a radio DJ in Phoenix played it by chance years later in 1988. The phones blew up. UB40 re-released it, and this time it soared to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Here's the kicker. UB40 didn't even know Neil Diamond wrote it until after the song became a hit. Neil later said he loved their version more than his own, calling it the best interpretation of anything I ever wrote. Stick with me, because next we're stepping into Beatles territory, and even they borrowed a few.
Come on, babe, come on and work it on out. Work it on out, babe.
13. Twist and Shout, The Beatles, 1963. It's the sound of teenage rebellion, Lennon's voice cracking with raw energy. But long before the Beatles took the stage, this song had already lived two very different lives. Originally recorded by the Top Notes in 1961 and produced by the one and only Phil Spector, the first version flopped. It was too polished, too clean. The song had punch, but no edge. Then, in 1962, the Isley Brothers stepped in and gave it a jolt, adding grit, soul, and swagger. That version made some waves, but the real explosion came with 4 kids from Liverpool. In 1963, the Beatles recorded Twist and Shout in a single take, at the very end of a grueling recording session. John Lennon had a sore throat. His voice was nearly gone, but they went for it anyway. The result? Pure lightning. Lennon later said, "I couldn't sing another note. I was just screaming." But that scream? It became legendary. Their version blew up the charts and became one of the most iconic rock and roll moments ever captured in a studio. And the wildest part? Even Paul McCartney admitted that they always thought of it as someone else's song. They just made it louder, rawer, and real. Coming up next, punk gets angry, guitars get louder, and a song that started with the Crickets ends up defining a revolution. 12. I Fought the Law, The Clash, 1979. You hear the opening riff and instantly feel the fire. But before it was a punk rock anthem, it was a forgotten track from Buddy Holly's backup band. The original version of I Fought the Law came from the Crickets. Yes, those Crickets, in 1960. Written by Sonny Curtis after Holly's death, it sat mostly unnoticed. Then in 1966, the Bobby Fuller 4 picked it up, gave it a polished rock sound, and took it to the Billboard charts. It did well, but it was far from iconic. Enter The Clash. In 1979, just when punk rock was sharpening its teeth, The Clash covered the song and lit it on fire. Their version dripped with defiance. Joe Strummer's snare, the grinding guitars, and the raw energy transformed a once-forgotten tune into a battle cry for rebellion. But the story takes a darker turn. Bobby Fuller, the singer who first popularized the song, was found dead in his car in 1966 under suspicious circumstances. Officially ruled a suicide or accident, but many fans still believe foul play was involved. That eerie mystery gave the song an even grittier legacy, and The Clash made sure it would never be forgotten. Up next, a song many think Santana created from scratch, but the truth goes back to a bluesy British rock band, and the transformation is unreal. 11. Black Magic Woman, Santana, 1970. That guitar, that rhythm, that supernatural vibe. Black Magic Woman feels like it was born in Santana's soul. But it was Fleetwood Mac who cast the first spell. In 1968, before Fleetwood Mac became the band of Rumours and Stevie Nicks, they were a gritty British blues rock group led by Peter Green, and it was Green who wrote and first recorded Black Magic Woman. His version was dark, moody, and all about heartbreak cloaked in mystery. Then in 1970, Santana took it and turned it into something else entirely. He added Latin percussion, a hypnotic organ, and his signature searing guitar tone. What emerged wasn't just a song, it was an experience, a trance. Santana's version quickly became the definitive one, climbing the charts and cementing itself in rock history. Most fans today have no idea it was a cover. Even Carlos Santana has admitted that the original inspired him deeply, saying Peter Green was one of the few guitarists who gave me the chills. Fleetwood Mac's Peter Green tragically would later battle mental health issues and vanish from the music scene for years. But this song, his song, kept his name alive, even when he couldn't. And now we go from mystery to full-on rock and roll mayhem because the king himself, Elvis Presley, wasn't the first to chase that hound dog. Let's talk about who did.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
10. Hound Dog. Elvis Presley, 1956. It's one of the most iconic rock songs in history. Elvis shakes, snarls, and explodes through the mic, but he wasn't the first to call out that hound dog. The original Hound Dog came from blues singer Big Mama Thornton in 1952, 4 years before Elvis made it famous. Written by the legendary duo Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller, her version was gritty, growling, and full of bite. It wasn't a teenage dance track. It was a fierce, female-driven anthem about a cheating man who'd worn out his welcome. Thornton's raw power lit up the R&B charts, and her delivery was unforgettable. As Stoller later recalled, when Big Mama sang it, it was scary. When Elvis did it, it was fun. That change in tone helped Elvis break into the mainstream, but it also sparked debate that never really died. When Elvis recorded his version, he rewired the song into a rock and roll juggernaut. It sold over 10 million copies and launched him into superstardom. But Thornton? She saw almost none of that success. Many critics later called out the industry's double standard, where white artists were rewarded for reworking black music without credit or compensation. Thornton once said, "That song made Elvis Presley, but it never made me a dime." Next up, Rod Stewart's heartfelt ballad that never belonged to him in the first place. And the man who wrote it? You know his voice better than you think.
I would have given you all of my heart.
9. The first cut is the deepest. Rod Stewart, 1976. It's tender, aching, and heartbreak never sounded so beautiful. But long before Rod Stewart sang it, it was passed from one soul to another, starting with a man better known for his folk wisdom. Cat Stevens wrote The First Cut is the Deepest in 1967. He originally penned it for another artist, soul singer P.P. Arnold, who had just left Ike and Tina Turner's band and was trying to break through on her own. Arnold's vision was gospel-tinged and emotionally rich, landing a spot on the UK charts. Cat Stevens later recorded it himself, and while his version was intimate and poetic, it still didn't take off like it should have. Then came Rod Stewart nearly a decade later, who brought a raw, raspy edge that helped push the song into the mainstream. His 1976 version hit #1 in the UK and became one of the defining tracks of his career. But here's what most fans don't know. Rod wasn't even the last one to claim it. Sheryl Crow also released a hit version in 2003, proving this song has a strange ability to find new life in every voice that touches it. Cat Stevens once joked, "That song's had more lives than a cat. It keeps getting rediscovered, and I'm okay with that." Stick around, because coming up next is a 90s pop anthem you've definitely screamed in your room. And the original came from a band no one remembers.
I don't know him anymore. There's nothing where he used to lie. Conversation has
8. Torn. Natalie Imbruglia, 1997. It's the ultimate 90s heartbreak anthem. You've probably shouted the chorus more than once, but the band that actually wrote it? Almost no one remembers their name. Before Natalie Imbruglia turned Torn into a worldwide smash, it was a brooding alt-rock song by a band called Edna Swap. Formed in Los Angeles in the mid-90s, Edna Swap wrote and recorded Torn in 1995. Their version had jagged guitars, darker tones, and a grunge influence that felt right at home in the era of Nirvana and Alanis. But it wasn't a hit. It never got radio play. It barely made a ripple. Then, Natalie Imbruglia, an actress turned singer from Australia, stepped in. She heard a Danish cover of the song, fell in love with the melody, and re-recorded it with a brighter pop rock twist. The result? A global phenomenon. Her version climbed to the top of the charts in over a dozen countries and became one of the most played songs on radio in the 90s. And despite not writing a single word, Natalie was nominated for a Grammy. Meanwhile, Edna Swap quietly faded into the background. Ironically, Edna Swap members later said they loved her version and even admitted it fit the song better than theirs. Still, most fans never knew they existed. Next up, a song that became the soundtrack to Girls' Night Out, but started with a man and a completely different meaning. 7. Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Cyndi Lauper, 1983. You hear the intro and you already know what's coming. But what if I told you this feminist anthem wasn't written by a woman and was originally sung by a man? The original version of Girls Just Wanna Have Fun was recorded in 1979 by Robert Hazard, a Philadelphia musician who performed it from the perspective of a guy frustrated by the unpredictability of women. It was catchy, but kind of sleazy. Hazard's demo was never officially released, but floated around the music industry. When Cyndi Lauper got her hands on it, she flipped the entire message. She kept the melody, but rewrote the lyrics from the female perspective, turning it into a declaration of joy, freedom, and independence. Her version wasn't about women being confusing, it was about women having the right to do whatever the hell they want. And it blew up. It became Lauper's breakout hit, peaking at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, launching her debut album to platinum status and earning her Grammy nominations. More than that, it became a generational anthem, fueling music videos, movie montages, protests, and pride parades for decades. Cyndi once said, "I wanted to make it an anthem for women, a fun one," and she did exactly that. But hang on, what happens when the Boss writes a hit and another band runs away with the glory? That's what we'll explore next. Six, Blinded by the Light, Manfred Mann's Earth Band, 1976. You've heard it, you've misheard it, you probably argued about the lyrics. But what if I told you this tongue-twisting anthem didn't come from Manfred Mann? It came from Bruce Springsteen. That's right, Blinded by the Light was written and recorded by Bruce Springsteen in 1973 for his debut album, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. His version was poetic, packed with surreal wordplay, and, true to the Boss, completely underappreciated at the time. It didn't chart, didn't make radio, and seemed to vanish into the fog. But then came Manfred Mann's Earth Band. They picked up the track, restructured the lyrics, added a spacey prog rock synth line, and gave it that electric, anthemic feel. Their version reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the only Springsteen-penned song ever to do so. That's right, Springsteen's biggest chart hit wasn't even performed by him. And here's the kicker. Springsteen himself said he didn't fully understand what Manfred Mann was singing in the chorus. You know the line, revved up like a deuce. Many misheard it as something way less family-friendly. Despite the confusion, the cover became legendary. And today, most people don't even know the Boss was the mastermind behind it. But next up, a queen reclaims her power with one word, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Yet the man who wrote it, he had a very different message in mind.
Won't you walk through, baby, I got what you need.
5. Respect, Aretha Franklin, 1967. It's bold, it's powerful, and it became the ultimate anthem of empowerment. But the original? Sung by a man, and the meaning was, let's just say, very different. Otis Redding wrote and recorded Respect in 1965 as a plea. His version was raw and emotional, a man asking his woman to respect him when he came home from work. It had soul, but it was firmly rooted in male-centered tradition. Then came Aretha Franklin. She didn't just cover the song, she reinvented it. She flipped the lyrics, added those unforgettable sock it to me backing vocals, and turned the track into a demand, not a request. Aretha's version was a declaration from a woman who knew her worth and wasn't asking for respect, she was claiming it. Released in 1967 at the height of the civil rights movement and just before the women's liberation era hit full stride, Respect instantly became more than a hit. It became a cultural statement. Aretha won 2 Grammys for the track and it shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Otis Redding famously said after hearing her version for the first time, "That girl done stole my song." And steal it she did, then made it immortal. Now hang tight, because next is a glam rock anthem that everyone associates with leather jackets and loud guitars, but it was actually born in a British studio by a band you've probably never even seen live.
I knew he must have been about 17.
4. I Love Rock and Roll, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, 1981. The black leather, the attitude, that voice. You'd swear Joan Jett was born to sing this song. But the band who actually wrote it never got anywhere near the glory. In 1975, a British band called the Arrows wrote and recorded I Love Rock and Roll. It was catchy, full of raw energy, and had that same chorus we all know, but barely anyone noticed. It was released only in the UK and didn't get a US launch at all. Then, in the late 70s, Joan Jett stumbled across the track while touring in England. She was instantly hooked. At first, she tried recording it with members of the Sex Pistols, but it didn't work. Years later, with her new band, the Blackhearts, she gave it another go. And that version? History. Her cover hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 7 straight weeks. It became a rock anthem, a feminist statement, and her signature song. But here's what most people miss. Jett barely changed the lyrics. She just delivered them with more bite, more sneer, and more power. Joan once said, "I didn't want to rewrite it, I just wanted to sing it like I meant it." And she did. Loudly. But now, get ready to slow it down. Because coming up next is the softest song Prince ever wrote, and he gave it away.
I go out every night and sleep alone.
3. Nothing Compares to You. Sinead O'Connor, 1990. It's one of the most emotional vocal performances ever captured on film, but the voice behind it wasn't the one who wrote it, and wasn't even the first to sing it. Prince wrote Nothing Compares to You in 1984 for his lesser-known side project, The Family. The song was included on their debut album, but it was buried deep in the tracklist with zero promotion. Even die-hard Prince fans didn't know it existed. Years later, Irish singer Sinead O'Connor got her hands on the song. Her producer Nellie Hooper stripped it down. No flashy guitars, no layered vocals. Just Sinead's haunting voice, a sparse arrangement, and lyrics that hit like a punch to the chest. When the music video dropped, just her face, close up, tears streaming, it shattered expectations. The cover topped charts in over 20 countries and became one of the defining songs of the 90s. Sinead didn't just sing it, she lived it. And yet, she never even met Prince. Here's the twist. Prince reportedly disliked her version at first. They had a tense, infamous meeting that ended in a physical altercation. But later, Prince acknowledged the cover's power, and the two shared mutual respect from afar. When Sinead passed away in 2023, Prince's estate re-released his own demo, finally giving people a side-by-side comparison. And now, we're entering the final 2. These songs redefine genres, shocked the industry, and you still might not know they were borrowed. Stick around, because what Soft Cell did next changed synth-pop forever. We're down to the final stretch, and these last 2, they're total game changers. The artists who covered them didn't just reinterpret the songs, they reinvented them. And the originals? Almost no one talks about them. Until now. 2. Tainted Love. Soft Cell. 1981. It's cold, hypnotic, and instantly recognizable from the first synth stab. But the version that made Tainted Love a goth pop anthem wasn't the first to break hearts with it. The original Tainted Love was recorded in 1965 by Gloria Jones, a powerhouse soul singer and songwriter. Her version was fast, soulful, and full of energy. It flopped in the US, but became a cult favorite in the UK's northern soul scene years later. DJs would spin it in underground clubs, and that's where a young Mark Almond of Soft Cell first heard it. Fast forward to 1981. Synthpop was on the rise, and Soft Cell took a gamble. They slowed it down, stripped away the horns, and replaced them with icy synths and minimalist drum machines. The result was haunting, vulnerable, completely reimagined. Their cover became a global sensation, hitting #1 in 17 countries and staying on the US Billboard Hot 100 for a record-breaking 43 weeks. That's right, 43 weeks. And they did it with just 2 members, 1 keyboard, and a drum loop. Mark Almond once said, "We wanted it to feel claustrophobic, like you were trapped in a toxic relationship." Mission accomplished. And now, the final song in our list. A soft-spoken Irish singer, a reworked melody, a Hollywood legend who unexpectedly wrote a thank you note. You're not ready for this one.
Open your heart and let my love come in. I want the moment to start when
1. Bette Davis Eyes. Kim Carnes, 1981. It's seductive, mysterious, and utterly unmistakable. But when Kim Carnes made Bette Davis Eyes a global hit, she was reinventing a song that once sounded like a Broadway ballad. The original was written by Jackie DeShannon and Donna Weiss in 1974. DeShannon even recorded it herself. Think jazzy pianos, silky vocals, and a completely different pace. It was playful, theatrical, and had nothing like the new wave edge that came later. Then came Kim Carnes, who, along with producer Valerie, rearranged the entire structure. Out went the cabaret vibe, in came smoky synths, sharp drum machines, and Carnes' gravel-coated vocals that gave the track its signature bite. It exploded. Bette Davis Eyes spent 9 weeks at number 1, won Grammys for Record and Song of the Year, and sold over 8 million copies worldwide. But maybe the best part? Bette Davis herself wrote Kim Carnes a letter. In it, she thanked her for making her name cool again and admitted the song introduced her to an entirely new generation. She even proudly displayed the Grammy in her home. Kim once recalled, "Getting that letter meant more to me than the award." Think that was wild? There's even more music madness waiting for you. So hit that like button, tap subscribe, and check out our next video, because we're diving deeper into the songs, secrets, and stories that you were never supposed to know.